Beneath the scorching sun of the Egyptian desert lies one of humanity's most enduring marvels, the Giza Plateau, home to the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx. For thousands of years, these colossal monuments have stood as a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the eternal quest to connect the earthly realm with the divine. But while we can gaze upon their grandeur today, to truly understand the pyramids, one must attempt to step back into the world of the ancient Egyptians, an age when religion, astronomy, and power intertwined in stone. The Giza Plateau was not merely a necropolis or a resting place for kings. It was a carefully designed landscape of eternity, one that mirrored the heavens and carried profound symbolic meaning. Today, with the help of advanced 3D technology and modern archaeology, we can attempt to peel back the centuries and rebuild the pyramids in our imagination, not as crumbling ruins surrounded by tourists, but as they were nearly 5,000 years ago, shimmering, vibrant, and alive with ritual purpose. The pyramids were not built in isolation, but as part of a vast sacred complex. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, the Pyramid of Khafre, and the Pyramid of Menkaure dominate the plateau. But they were accompanied by temples, causeways, satellite pyramids, and cemeteries that served both practical and spiritual roles. When we look at Giza in the 21st century, what we see are weathered stone blocks stripped of their outer casings, but in their prime, these pyramids were radiant. Covered in gleaming white Tura limestone and capped with gilded pyramidions, they reflected the sunlight so brilliantly that they must have been visible for miles across the desert. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the pyramids as Mer, a word meaning place of ascension. For the Egyptians, these were not just tombs but stairways to the heavens, monuments designed to transform mortal kings into eternal gods who would live with Ra, the sun deity, forever. Understanding the pyramids in 3D allows us to visualize the scope of their construction with fresh eyes. Imagine the Great Pyramid of Khufu standing at its original height of 481 feet, the tallest structure in the world for more than 800 years. At its base, it stretched 755 feet on each side, forming a nearly perfect square. The precision of this engineering, achieved without modern tools, cranes, or computers, continues to astound scholars and architects alike. Millions of limestone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons, were quarried, transported, and placed with remarkable accuracy. But beyond the technical achievement lies the cultural significance. Every measurement, every angle, every alignment of the pyramid was infused with cosmic and religious meaning. The pyramid's orientation to the cardinal points and its alignment with certain stars were not accidents, but intentional choices reflecting the Egyptians' belief in the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The story of the pyramids is also the story of the kings who built them. Khufu, the pharaoh of the 4th dynasty, commissioned the Great Pyramid not merely as a tomb, but as a statement of absolute authority. His son, Khafre, followed with his own pyramid, slightly smaller, but situated on higher ground, creating the illusion that it was taller. Khafre is also credited with commissioning the Great Sphinx, that enigmatic guardian with the body of a lion and the face of a king, which still gazes out across the plateau today. Menkaure, Khafre's successor, completed the triad with a more modest pyramid, though its mortuary temple was lavishly adorned with statues and intricate reliefs. Together, these 3 monuments tell the story of a dynasty at the height of its power, projecting strength, permanence, and divine legitimacy. To rebuild Giza in our minds is to reimagine a world filled with life. Picture the bustling activity that once surrounded the construction sites: laborers hauling stone, craftsmen carving hieroglyphs, priests chanting rituals, and officials recording supplies on papyrus scrolls. The workers were not slaves, as popular myths once suggested, but organized laborers, farmers, artisans, and specialists, who rotated service during the agricultural season when the Nile's floods made farming impossible. Excavations of workers' villages near the pyramids reveal evidence of well-fed communities, complete with bakeries, breweries, and medical facilities. These findings paint a picture not of oppression, but of national unity. Thousands of Egyptians working together on a divine project that they believed ensured prosperity for both the king and the land. But perhaps the greatest mystery still lies in the why. Why did the Egyptians devote such immense resources to building these colossal structures? Modern historians argue that the pyramids served not only as royal tombs, but also as political statements. By constructing monuments on a scale that defied imagination, the pharaohs reinforced their divine right to rule. The pyramids were visible manifestations of order, stability, and eternal life, concepts at the heart of the Egyptian worldview. They were also cosmic symbols. The pyramid's shape mirrored the rays of the sun descending to earth, while its internal passageways recreated the pharaoh's journey through the underworld to the stars. Every block of stone, every sacred ritual performed within these walls, carried layers of meaning designed to ensure that Egypt's rulers would never be forgotten. Today, as we reconstruct the pyramids in 3D, we are not merely rebuilding stone. We are resurrecting a civilization's world. We can imagine the pyramids as they once stood, dazzling white, their polished surfaces glowing in the desert light, their golden tips catching the first rays of sunrise. We can picture the grand causeways leading from the valley temples to the pyramid bases, where priests conducted ceremonies of purification and rebirth. We can envision processions of mourners and priests, chanting hymns to the gods as they carried the mummified king to his eternal home. These were not silent ruins, but living spaces of ritual, belief, and power. The Pyramids of Giza remain timeless symbols of human ambition and spirituality. Through 3D reconstructions and historical imagination, we can transport ourselves back to that moment in history when Egypt stood at the height of its glory, building monuments that would endure longer than any empire, any kingdom, and perhaps even humanity itself. To look at the Giza Plateau today is to be reminded that beneath every stone lies not just history, but a story of faith, determination, and the eternal human desire to touch the divine. To truly understand the majesty of the Great Pyramid, one must first enter the world of its creator, Pharaoh Khufu, known to the Greeks as Cheops. Khufu reigned during Egypt's 4th dynasty, around 2580–2560 BC, a period historians often refer to as the Golden Age of pyramid building. His father, Sneferu, had already revolutionized pyramid construction, moving from step pyramids to the smooth, sided true pyramid. Sneferu's architectural experiments culminated in the Red Pyramid at Dahshur, Egypt's first successful true pyramid. Yet Khufu, ambitious and determined, envisioned something grander, an eternal monument that would dwarf anything built before and ensure his name endured across millennia. Thus was born the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest pyramid ever constructed, a feat so astonishing that it would become one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Khufu's decision to build on the Giza Plateau was a deliberate one. This elevated limestone ridge on the west bank of the Nile overlooked fertile farmland and offered a commanding view of the surrounding landscape. It was also close enough to the river to facilitate transportation of materials. Symbolically, the west bank was associated with death and the setting sun, making it the perfect place for the pharaoh's eternal resting place. Here, Khufu commissioned not just a pyramid but an entire funerary complex, a valley temple near the Nile, a grand causeway, a mortuary temple adjacent to the pyramid, subsidiary pyramids for queens, and mastaba tombs for nobles. The site was designed as both a necropolis and a sacred theater, where rituals of death and resurrection unfolded in carefully choreographed stages. Reconstructing the pyramid in 3D reveals a monument that defies imagination. Rising to its original height of 481 feet, the Great Pyramid contained more than 3 million blocks of stone, some weighing several tons. Its base, measuring 755 feet on each side, was aligned with remarkable precision to the cardinal points of the compass. Modern engineers are still awed by the accuracy of this alignment, with deviations of less than a fraction of a degree. The pyramid's core was built of locally quarried limestone, while the outer casing of fine Tura limestone created a smooth, brilliant surface that reflected the sun's rays. At its pinnacle, a golden capstone, or pyramidion, crowned the structure, symbolizing the Benben stone of creation and the sun's eternal power. Imagine, for a moment, the pyramid shimmering under the Egyptian sun, beacon of divine authority and celestial connection. The internal architecture of the pyramid is just as fascinating. Unlike earlier pyramids, which often collapsed or were riddled with structural flaws, Khufu's pyramid was designed with ingenious solutions to support its immense weight. The entrance, located on the north face, led into a descending passage that connected to multiple chambers. Most remarkable was the king's chamber, constructed entirely of massive granite blocks transported from Aswan, nearly 600 miles away. Above the chamber, a series of relieving chambers with corbelled ceilings distributed the pyramid's weight, preventing collapse. The Grand Gallery, a sloping corridor nearly 150 feet long, remains one of the most breathtaking features, its soaring walls and corbelled ceiling creating a space that feels both functional and awe-inspiring. To walk through it in a 3D reconstruction is to step into a corridor designed not only for utility but for symbolic ascent, guiding the pharaoh's soul upward toward the stars. But beyond its engineering marvels, the Great Pyramid was a spiritual machine. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not the end but a transition to the afterlife. The pyramid functioned as both a tomb and a gateway, guiding Khufu's Ka, or life force, to join the gods in the heavens. The shafts leading from the king's chamber, once dismissed as ventilation, are now believed to have been symbolic passageways aligned with specific stars, such as Orion's belt, associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. These alignments reinforced the idea that Khufu would ascend to the celestial realm, continuing to reign alongside the gods. Every aspect of the pyramid's design, from its orientation to its internal chambers, reflected this cosmological vision of rebirth and eternity. Of course, building such a monument required immense resources. Ancient records suggest that Khufu mobilized tens of thousands of workers, organized into teams that rotated seasonally. Far from the image of slaves often popularized in later traditions, evidence from excavated workers' villages near Giza shows that laborers were well fed, housed in barracks, and provided with medical care. These were skilled builders, masons, and craftsmen, many of whom took pride in their work. Graffiti left inside the pyramid by construction crews proudly named their teams with titles like the Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaura, humanizing the massive enterprise. Through their sweat and labor, these workers transformed Khufu's vision into stone, ensuring the pyramid would stand for eternity. The Great Pyramid was not merely a tomb, it was a statement of power. By constructing the largest monument in human history up to that time, Khufu demonstrated his absolute authority over both the natural and human worlds. The sheer scale of the pyramid communicated permanence, stability, and divine legitimacy. It told every Egyptian, and indeed every visitor, that their king was no ordinary man but a god in human form, destined to live forever. It was propaganda in stone, a declaration that the king's reign would never fade, even as dynasties rose and fell. Today, through the lens of 3D technology, we can bring this ancient marvel back to life. We can strip away the erosion, rebuild the polished limestone casing, and watch the pyramid gleam once more in the desert sun. We can step into the mortuary temple, where priests performed rituals of offering and purification. We can walk the Grand Causeway, imagining processions of mourners and priests carrying Khufu's body to his eternal home. By reconstructing the Great Pyramid in all its glory, we are not just preserving history. We are witnessing a civilization's ultimate expression of faith, ambition, and power. The image of the Great Pyramid often conjures visions of slaves toiling under the whips of overseers, dragging massive stones across the desert sands. This portrayal, popularized by ancient Greek historians and reinforced in Hollywood films, has persisted in the Western imagination. Yet, modern archaeology paints a very different picture, one of organization, community, and national pride. The pyramids were not built by enslaved masses, but by a rotating labor force of skilled workers, farmers, and craftsmen who took part in one of the most ambitious building projects in human history. In fact, the story of the workers at Giza is as remarkable as the pyramids themselves, shedding light on the lives of the ordinary Egyptians who gave their strength and skill to raise monuments for eternity. The construction workforce was massive, but not chaotic. Scholars estimate that around 20,000 to 30,000 workers were active at Giza at any given time, a fraction of the earlier exaggerated figures that spoke of hundreds of thousands. These men were drawn primarily from Egypt's farming population. Since the Nile's annual flood rendered fields unworkable for part of the year, many farmers joined pyramid crews during the inundation season. This arrangement served multiple purposes. It provided the state with labor while ensuring workers had access to food, housing, and wages during a time when they could not farm. In this sense, pyramid building was not slavery but a form of national service, rooted in the belief that helping the pharaoh achieve eternal life was a sacred duty. Evidence of workers' lives has come to light through excavations at Giza, particularly the discovery of a workers' village near the Pyramid Plateau. This settlement, often referred to as Height El Ghurab, included barracks-style housing, bakeries, breweries, and administrative offices. Archaeologists unearthed vast quantities of animal bones, indicating that laborers were fed a diet of beef, goat, and fish, far richer than the diet of most Egyptians. Grain silos and bread ovens suggest mass production of staple foods, while pottery jars indicate regular rations of beer. These findings contradict the image of exhausted, starving slaves. Instead, the workers appear to have been well cared for, their labor sustained by a reliable system of provisions. The organization of the workforce reveals a surprising level of structure. Workers were divided into crews of around 2,000 men, which were further subdivided into groups of 200, then into teams of 20. Each group had a unique identity, sometimes marked by graffiti left inside the pyramid. Names like the Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaure have been found scrawled on blocks, a testament to camaraderie and pride. These inscriptions show that workers were not nameless, faceless laborers, but individuals who took ownership of their contributions. It also hints at humor and solidarity among teams, even in the midst of grueling physical work. Medical evidence adds another layer to the story. Excavations of workers' graves near the Giza Plateau revealed skeletons with signs of healed injuries, including broken bones that had been set and healed properly. This indicates that laborers received medical attention, likely from on-site physicians. Far from being discarded when injured, workers were cared for and allowed to recover. Such treatment reflects the state's investment in maintaining a healthy and capable workforce, as well as the recognition of the laborer's essential role in the project. Life in the workers' village was not only about labor, but also about community. Archaeologists found small chapels and communal spaces that suggest religious practices and social gatherings were part of daily life. Families of workers may have lived nearby, creating a support network. While the work was undoubtedly difficult, the pyramid project provided stability, food security, and a sense of shared purpose. For many Egyptians, contributing to the construction of the pharaoh's eternal resting place was an act of devotion, binding them to both their king and their gods. The seasonal rotation of workers further highlights the balance between duty and livelihood. Farmers would join the workforce during the flood season and return to their fields once the waters receded. This cyclical labor system ensured that Egypt's agricultural base remained intact while also channeling manpower into monumental construction. It was a pragmatic solution that turned what might have been idle time into an opportunity for both the state and the workers. The pyramids, therefore, were built not just with stone but with a rhythm tied to the very heartbeat of the Nile. Of course, the image of camaraderie and organization should not obscure the realities of hardship. The work was physically demanding, requiring immense strength to quarry, transport, and set massive stone blocks. Workers labored in the desert sun, often for long hours. Injuries and exhaustion were common, and while medical care was available, the mortality rate among workers was still higher than average. Yet, despite the hardships, there is little evidence to suggest widespread resentment or coercion. On the contrary, the pride expressed in graffiti and the scale of organization imply a sense of collective purpose, one that transcended individual suffering. In a broader sense, pyramid building became a unifying force for Egypt. The project drew workers from across the Nile Valley, creating bonds between people of different regions. It reinforced the authority of the pharaoh, whose divine role was to maintain ma'at, or cosmic order, by ensuring the prosperity of the land. By participating in pyramid construction, workers became part of this cosmic mission, securing not only the pharaoh's eternal life, but also their own place in the divine cycle. The act of building was therefore both practical and profoundly spiritual. Reconstructing the workers' village and pyramid site in 3D allows us to experience this world firsthand. We can walk through the barracks, enter the bustling bakeries, and watch teams hauling blocks along ramps. We can see the organization of crews, their graffiti scrawled proudly on stone, and the chapels where they prayed after a long day of labor. Through this digital resurrection, the workers of Giza are no longer faceless shadows, but real people whose sweat and determination carved monuments that still inspire awe. Their story, too often overshadowed by the grandeur of the pyramids themselves, deserves its place in history as one of the greatest human endeavors ever undertaken. When standing before the towering pyramids of Giza, it is natural to wonder, how did ancient Egyptians achieve such feats of engineering with Bronze Age tools? The question has fascinated historians, architects, and engineers for centuries, spawning countless theories, from elaborate ramp systems to speculative alien interventions. Yet archaeology and careful experimentation provide us with practical insights into the ingenuity of the builders. What emerges is a picture not of mystery, but of brilliance, of a civilization that maximized its resources, adapted clever techniques, and left behind structures that continue to defy time itself. The pyramid construction began with the most crucial element, planning. Ancient Egyptian architects were master surveyors who relied on simple yet effective tools. Instruments such as the merk, a sighting tool, and the bay, a type of plumb bob, allowed them to establish true north and ensure accurate alignments. Remarkably, the Great Pyramid of Khufu is aligned with the cardinal points to within a fraction of a degree, an achievement so precise that even modern builders would find it challenging without advanced technology. This alignment was no accident, but the result of astronomical observations and meticulous surveying. Once the plan was set, attention turned to the quarrying of stone. The core of the pyramids was built largely from local limestone, quarried directly at Giza. Workers used copper chisels, dolerite pounders, and wooden wedges to extract blocks. Though primitive by today's standards, these tools were remarkably effective in skilled hands. Dolerite, a hard volcanic stone, was used to pound and crack the limestone surface until blocks could be pried free. For the outer casing stones, a finer white limestone was transported from quarries at Tura, across the Nile, while massive granite blocks for the internal chambers came from Aswan, over 500 miles away. The logistics of moving these materials highlight both the organizational skill and the determination of the builders. Transportation of the blocks was another engineering marvel. Scenes depicted in tombs show workers dragging sledges loaded with stone across the desert sands. Recent studies suggest that water was poured in front of the sledges to reduce friction, effectively creating a lubricated path that allowed fewer men to pull greater loads. This simple innovation reveals the Egyptians' deep understanding of physics and practical problem solving. For river transport, boats carried heavy stones downstream, navigating the Nile during its flood season when water levels were highest, making it possible to approach closer to the Giza plateau. Perhaps the greatest debate among scholars revolves around the ramps used to raise stones to the pyramid's growing heights. Multiple theories have been proposed: a massive straight ramp stretching from the base, zigzagging ramps along the pyramid's sides, or spiraling ramps wrapping around the structure. Each has its merits and drawbacks, but most experts believe that a combination of methods was employed. A large ramp may have been used for the lower levels, gradually dismantled and repurposed as the pyramid rose, while smaller internal or side ramps allowed blocks to be positioned higher up. Reconstructions in 3D give us a sense of how these ramps may have functioned, transforming speculation into visual reality. The precision with which the blocks were placed remains astonishing. The joints between casing stones were so fine that a knife blade could barely fit between them. This level of craftsmanship was achieved by careful dressing of stones, polishing surfaces, and adjusting placement with levers. The Egyptians' mastery of leverage and counterweight systems enabled them to move and position blocks weighing several tons with surprising control. Far from being haphazard, the construction process was a symphony of coordinated labor, engineering, and artistry. Another aspect of the pyramid's engineering brilliance lies in their internal design. The Great Pyramid, for example, contains a series of chambers, passageways, and relieving structures that distribute weight and prevent collapse. The Grand Gallery, with its corbelled ceiling, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how to shift pressure away from vulnerable spaces. Above the king's chamber, massive granite beams were arranged in a layered system to deflect the immense weight of the pyramid. These techniques reveal an intuitive grasp of structural engineering centuries before formal architectural science was developed. The use of copper tools also raises an interesting point about innovation. While copper is softer than the stone it was used to cut, the Egyptians sharpened and replaced their tools constantly, supported by a massive supply system. Thousands of workers at workshops hammered, sharpened, and distributed tools to crews, ensuring a continuous flow of equipment. The sheer scale of logistics, managing tools, food, water, and materials, was as crucial to pyramid building as the physical act of moving stone. To modern eyes, the pyramid's perfection seems almost superhuman, but the truth is even more inspiring. They were built not with alien technology, as fringe theories suggest, but with human ingenuity, determination, and collective effort. Experiments conducted by modern engineers using replica tools and methods have confirmed that the Egyptians' techniques were entirely feasible, though labor-intensive. When reconstructed in 3D, these processes come alive. We can watch workers lubricating sledges, see ramps rising alongside the pyramid, and witness stone blocks sliding into place with precision. The visualization transforms abstract theories into tangible scenes of ancient innovation. Ultimately, the engineering of the pyramids was not just about moving stone. It was about orchestrating human effort on a monumental scale. It required foresight, adaptability, and relentless organization. The Egyptians harnessed simple tools, natural forces, and human strength to achieve what many consider impossible. The fact that their methods remain a subject of fascination today is a testament to their genius. The pyramids are not only monuments to kings, but also monuments to the ingenuity of a people who, with limited technology, achieved greatness by maximizing every resource at their disposal. To fully understand the Pyramids of Giza, one must look beyond their stone and geometry to the spiritual world of the ancient Egyptians. These were not merely tombs or monuments of political power. They were deeply symbolic structures, carefully crafted to bridge the realm of the living with that of the divine. Every angle, every alignment, every chamber was infused with meaning, reflecting a world where religion, politics, and cosmic order were inseparable. In essence, the pyramid was not only a burial site for a pharaoh, but a pathway to eternity, designed to secure the king's immortality and maintain harmony between heaven and earth. At the heart of Egyptian belief was the concept of Mat, the divine principle of order, balance, and truth. The pharaoh, as the earthly representative of the gods, was tasked with upholding Mat, ensuring the stability of the cosmos through his actions. When he died, this duty did not end. Rather, it transformed into a journey to join the gods and intercede for Egypt from the afterlife. The pyramid was the physical and spiritual vehicle for this journey, serving as both tomb and cosmic machine. Its very shape, the pointed form rising from the earth to the sky, embodied a ladder to the heavens, echoing the sun's rays descending from the celestial realm. The solar connection is particularly striking in the design of the pyramids. Many scholars believe the pyramid's form symbolized the rays of the sun, with the pharaoh's soul ascending along them to join Ra, the sun god, in his eternal voyage across the sky. This interpretation is reinforced by the pyramid's alignment with cardinal directions, particularly its remarkable accuracy in orienting north-south and east-west. Such precision was not merely practical but cosmological, binding the king's eternal resting place to the rhythms of the universe. The west bank of the Nile, where the pyramids were built, also carried symbolic weight as the land of the dead, where the sun set each evening before rising anew. Thus, the pyramids stood as gateways to the cycle of death and rebirth. Inside the pyramid, the layout of chambers and passageways further reflected religious symbolism. The king's chamber, often considered the heart of the Great Pyramid, was not just a resting place for a body, but a sacred chamber designed to facilitate the pharaoh's transformation into an eternal, divine being. The shafts leading out from the chamber are believed to have aligned with specific stars, allowing the pharaoh's spirit to ascend to the heavens and join the imperishable stars in the northern skies, symbols of eternity that never set. Meanwhile, the queen's chamber and subterranean chambers may have served additional ritual functions. Their purposes still debated, but undoubtedly tied to the complex spiritual journey envisioned for the pharaoh. The surrounding mortuary temples and causeways expanded the symbolism beyond the pyramid itself. Each pyramid was connected to a valley temple by a processional causeway, used during the funerary rituals that guided the king into the afterlife. These temples served as sites of ongoing worship, where priests maintained rituals to sustain the pharaoh's spirit long after his burial. The pyramid complex was thus not a solitary monument, but part of a living religious landscape, where architecture, ritual, and belief converged in a seamless expression of devotion. It is also worth noting the pyramid's role in uniting the people of Egypt under a shared spiritual purpose. The act of building such a monument was itself a form of religious devotion, an offering of labor to ensure the divine well-being of the king and, by extension, the land. Workers who carved stone, hauled blocks, and baked bread were not only contributing to a national project, but participating in a sacred act. Their sweat and toil became part of the eternal story of Egypt, inscribed not in words but in the very stones of the pyramid. This collective effort reinforced a cultural identity bound to the pharaoh's divine mission. The pyramid's symbolism was not static but evolving. Earlier step pyramids, such as that of Djoser at Saqqara, represented a more rudimentary expression of the ascent to heaven, with their stacked terraces resembling a giant staircase. The true pyramids at Giza refined this concept into smooth, sided structures, amplifying the solar symbolism and emphasizing the pharaoh's connection with the eternal sun. This evolution reflects a growing sophistication in both architectural technique and religious thought, as Egyptians sought to perfect the vessel of immortality for their rulers. Reconstructing the pyramids in 3D allows us to rediscover this sacred symbolism with fresh eyes. We can watch as the sun sets behind the pyramid, casting long shadows across the desert, and imagine the pharaoh's soul ascending with the fading light. We can trace the shafts of the king's chamber to the stars above, aligning the digital sky with the same constellations that guided ancient builders. We can walk the causeways in virtual space, experiencing the solemn journey of priests as they carried the pharaoh to his eternal home. These visual reconstructions bring us closer to the ancient mindset, where the pyramid was not stone alone but a bridge between worlds. Ultimately, the pyramid's power lies not only in their size but in their meaning. They remind us that for the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end but a transformation, and architecture was a tool to secure that transformation. The pyramid embodied both the grandeur of kingship and the universal human desire for immortality. To stand before the Great Pyramid today is to witness not just an architectural wonder, but a timeless symbol of humanity's search for eternity, carved into the sands of Egypt over 4,000 years ago. When we speak of the Pyramids of Giza, we must remember that they were not isolated structures, but part of a royal vision carried out across generations. Each of the three main pyramids was built under the reign of a different pharaoh, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, whose ambitions and legacies were etched into stone and sand. Together, these kings transformed Giza into the most iconic necropolis in the ancient world, a place where royal power, religious devotion, and national identity converged. To understand the pyramids, we must understand the men who ordered them built and the dynastic vision they sought to preserve for eternity. Khufu, known to the Greeks as Cheops, was the monarch behind the Great Pyramid, the largest and most famous of them all. Reigning in the early 26th century BCE, Khufu presided over a flourishing Egypt, whose wealth and resources made such an audacious project possible. Ancient sources, including Herodotus, paint Khufu in a negative light, accusing him of tyranny and extravagance, but archaeological evidence suggests a more complex figure. The sheer scale of the Great Pyramid speaks not of a capricious despot, but of a ruler with extraordinary organizational power and a profound belief in the eternal mission of kingship. Khufu's pyramid, with its astonishing size and precision, set a standard of ambition that no successor would ever surpass. It was not merely a tomb, but a cosmic statement, a declaration that Egypt's kings were eternal, their power as unyielding as the stone itself. Khafre, Khufu's son, built the second pyramid at Giza, slightly smaller than his father's but strategically situated to appear nearly equal in height due to its placement on higher ground. Khafre's pyramid complex is most famous for its association with the Great Sphinx, the colossal guardian carved from the limestone bedrock. While the purpose of the Sphinx remains debated, many scholars believe it represents Khafre himself as a divine ruler, merging human authority with the strength of a lion and the wisdom of the gods. The combination of pyramid and Sphinx created one of the most enduring symbols of ancient Egypt, blending architecture and sculpture into a unified vision of kingship and protection. Khafre's pyramid demonstrated continuity with his father's project while adding new dimensions of artistry and symbolism. Menkaure, the grandson of Khufu, built the third and smallest of the Giza pyramids. Though modest in comparison, Menkaure's pyramid reflected an evolution in both architecture and ideology. The structure originally stood about 215 feet tall, significantly shorter than the pyramids of Khufu and Khafre, but its casing stones of granite and limestone suggest a focus on quality and durability rather than sheer size. Excavations of Menkaure's pyramid complex also revealed a series of beautiful statues depicting the king with various deities, crafted with exquisite artistry. These statues emphasize a more intimate relationship between the pharaoh and the gods, marking a subtle shift in how kingship was expressed. Menkaure's reign may have been shorter and his resources more limited, but his legacy endures in the refinement and beauty of his pyramid and associated artifacts. Together, these three pyramids represented a dynasty's vision of eternity. They were not random constructions, but carefully planned monuments that reinforced one another, forming a sacred landscape that reflected both the glory of individual rulers and the continuity of the Old Kingdom. The arrangement of the pyramids, aligned with astronomical features and connected by causeways and temples, created a grand religious and political complex that tied the living to the eternal cycle of the cosmos. Giza became a statement to the world and to future generations. Egypt's kings were not mere mortals but divine beings whose presence would endure for millennia. The legacy of these pharaohs was not limited to stone. Their pyramids inspired subsequent rulers, even as later dynasties shifted away from such colossal tombs. The memory of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure persisted in texts, traditions, and the awe of visitors from antiquity to the present day. The Greeks, encountering these structures centuries later, could hardly believe that such feats had been accomplished by human hands, attributing them to mythical kings and superhuman effort. In this way, the pharaohs of Giza transcended their own time, becoming figures of legend as much as history. Reconstructing these rulers' legacies in 3D offers a powerful perspective. We can envision Khufu's pyramid rising as the tallest structure on Earth for thousands of years, dominating the horizon. We can see Khafre's Sphinx gazing across the desert, its enigmatic face embodying royal authority. We can walk through Menkaure's temples, admiring the statues that fused kingship with divinity. These digital reconstructions bring the pharaoh's visions to life, reminding us that the pyramids were not just architectural wonders, but personal legacies of kings who sought to immortalize themselves through stone and symbol. In the end, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure achieved precisely what they intended. They carved their names into eternity. Their pyramids still stand after more than 500 years, monuments not only to their reigns but to the enduring power of human ambition, faith, and creativity. The kings may have long since passed into the afterlife, but their vision continues to shape our understanding of ancient Egypt, ensuring that their legacy remains alive beneath the desert sun. The Pyramids of Giza, towering and monumental from the outside, conceal within them a labyrinth of chambers, passageways, and enigmatic voids that have puzzled explorers for centuries. These were not simply giant stone masses, but intricately designed structures with symbolic layouts intended to guide the pharaoh's soul toward the afterlife. Yet, despite centuries of study, many mysteries remain hidden within their stone hearts. Advances in archaeology and modern scanning technology have only deepened our fascination, revealing secrets that continue to spark debate and imagination. Inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu lies one of the most extraordinary interior designs in ancient architecture. The pyramid is composed of a series of chambers and corridors, each with a specific symbolic and functional purpose. At the heart of the structure is the so-called King's Chamber, built entirely of massive granite blocks transported from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. The chamber contains a sarcophagus now empty, which once likely held Khufu's body. Above the chamber are a series of relieving chambers, ingenious architectural features designed to distribute the immense weight of the stones above. This engineering solution reveals the incredible foresight of the pyramid builders, who understood how to manipulate materials and physics on a scale that remains impressive even today. Below the King's Chamber lies the enigmatic Queen's Chamber, whose purpose remains one of the pyramid's most enduring mysteries. Some scholars argue it may have housed a statue of Khufu, serving as a spiritual double, while others suggest it had ritual functions connected to the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. Narrow shafts extend from both the king's and queen's chambers, aligning with specific stars, suggesting that the pyramid functioned as both a tomb and a celestial gateway. These shafts reinforce the idea that the pyramids were more than monumental graves. They were instruments designed to link the earthly realm with the heavens, guiding the soul of the king to join the gods. Even deeper lies the unfinished subterranean chamber, cut directly into the bedrock beneath the pyramid. Its rough, incomplete state raises intriguing questions. Was it abandoned due to a change in design, or did it serve a symbolic purpose as a representation of the underworld? The chamber's ambiguity reflects the broader mystery of the pyramids. Despite their monumental visibility, their inner workings remain shadowed in uncertainty. Modern technology has added new layers to the puzzle. In recent years, the Scan Pyramids project, using advanced muon tomography and thermal imaging, revealed previously unknown voids within the Great Pyramid. These massive empty spaces, hidden behind walls and above chambers, suggest there is still much we do not understand about the pyramid's internal structure. Could these voids represent hidden corridors, storage areas, or symbolic spaces meant never to be entered by the living? The discovery has reignited debates among Egyptologists and highlighted that even the most studied monument on Earth continues to surprise us. Khufu's pyramid also conceals fascinating interior features, though less elaborate than Khufu's. Its main burial chamber was crafted from limestone and granite, and evidence suggests that Khufu may have been interred there. Unlike Khufu's pyramid, however, Khufu's interior is simpler, perhaps reflecting a shift in architectural priorities or religious symbolism. Menkaura's pyramid, though smaller, contains a similarly complex arrangement of corridors and burial chambers. In the 19th century, explorers discovered a wooden coffin inscribed with Menkaura's name, though it is now thought to have been a later replacement. The presence of sarcophagi and artifacts within Menkaura's pyramid provides tantalizing hints about how these structures functioned as both sacred tombs and eternal monuments. The mystery of the pyramid's interiors extends beyond their architecture to the lingering absence of the royal mummies themselves. Despite centuries of searching, the bodies of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure have never been found within their pyramids. This absence has fueled countless theories. Were the tombs looted in antiquity, or were the pharaohs buried elsewhere, with the pyramids serving purely symbolic functions? Some suggest that hidden chambers, yet undiscovered, may still contain treasures or even the remains of these kings, awaiting discovery. This enduring enigma keeps the pyramids at the center of archaeological intrigue. Recreating the interiors in 3D offers a profound way to experience these hidden worlds. Imagine virtually walking down the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid, its soaring corbelled walls leading you toward the king's chamber. Visualize the narrow shafts aligning with the stars, glowing with celestial light. Step into the unfinished subterranean chamber and feel the eerie stillness of a space that has defied interpretation for millennia. Digital reconstructions can show us what it might have been like for priests and workers to navigate these sacred passages, carrying offerings and performing rituals in the dim flicker of torchlight. In many ways, the pyramids' mysteries are as compelling as their monumental exteriors. The hidden chambers, unexplained voids, and absent mummies remind us that the pyramids were not built for us. They were constructed for a culture with its own complex beliefs, rituals, and visions of eternity. As we reconstruct and explore them in the digital age, we do not merely uncover stones and corridors. We touch the edges of an ancient world, glimpsing the eternal journey that the Egyptians believed their kings would undertake. The pyramids still whisper secrets through their silent halls, and perhaps that is part of their enduring power. They continue to hold mysteries we may never fully solve. While the pyramids themselves rise as symbols of eternity, they were not built in isolation. Surrounding these colossal monuments was an entire world of bustling activity: workers' villages, supply depots, bakeries, breweries, and quarries, all of which reveal that the pyramids were the product of a massive, organized human effort. To understand the pyramids fully, we must step beyond the stone blocks and into the lives of those who dedicated their sweat, skills, and daily routines to creating these wonders. Reconstructing this world in 3D allows us to glimpse the vibrant society that thrived in the shadow of the pyramids. For centuries, popular imagination conjured images of slaves toiling under the lash to build the pyramids. Hollywood films and early historians reinforced this myth. However, modern archaeology tells a very different story. Excavations near the Giza Plateau have uncovered the remains of a planned workers' settlement, revealing that the builders were not slaves but skilled laborers, artisans, and seasonal workers who contributed to a massive state project. They were fed, housed, and even honored for their contributions. Far from being anonymous laborers, these people were the backbone of one of the greatest architectural achievements in human history. Archaeological discoveries provide fascinating glimpses into their daily lives. The workers' village consisted of long barracks-style dormitories where men slept in rows, sharing the camaraderie of a collective workforce. Evidence of large-scale bakeries and breweries has been found, indicating that bread and beer were staples of their diet. In fact, it is estimated that tens of thousands of loaves and gallons of beer were produced daily to sustain the labor force. Bones of cattle, sheep, and goats unearthed at the site show that workers were provided with meat, an extraordinary luxury for ordinary Egyptians, suggesting that pyramid builders were better fed than much of the general population. Beyond food and shelter, the workers' settlement reveals a social structure that mirrored Egyptian society itself. Overseers managed teams of laborers, while artisans crafted tools, carved stone, and painted hieroglyphs. Skilled engineers calculated angles and alignments, ensuring the precision of each block placement. Medical facilities were also present. Skeletons discovered show evidence of healed fractures, meaning workers received care and could return to their duties after injuries. This indicates a level of organization and concern for worker welfare that was unusual for the ancient world. The labor itself was grueling. Massive limestone blocks had to be quarried nearby, cut with copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones, then hauled to the pyramid site using sledges and manpower. Recent experiments suggest that workers may have poured water on the sand ahead of sledges to reduce friction, a simple yet ingenious technique that made it possible to move stones weighing several tons. These efforts were coordinated on a scale that required careful planning, communication, and discipline, underscoring the complexity of the pyramid project. Reconstructing this life in 3D offers a vivid way to experience the pyramid building world. Imagine stepping into the workers' village, watching bakers knead dough in massive ovens, or brewers fermenting barley in clay vats. Picture groups of laborers pulling a sledge, chanting in unison as overseers keep the rhythm. Walk through the barracks at night, hearing the tired conversations of men recounting their day, sharing laughter, or planning for festivals. These digital reconstructions reveal not just the pyramid's grandeur, but also the humanity of those who built them. It is also important to recognize that pyramid building was more than just labor. It was part of a national effort that unified Egypt. Farmers, after harvest season, joined the workforce to fulfill their duty to the pharaoh, blending devotion and obligation. Building the pyramids was not just about honoring a king in death. It was about reinforcing the living society's stability, demonstrating Egypt's wealth, power, and divine order. For the workers, their contribution linked them directly to the gods, for they were participating in a project that promised eternal life for the pharaoh and, by extension, prosperity for the land. Daily struggles were real, however. The desert sun beat down mercilessly, injuries were common, and life expectancy was short. Yet, the workers' resilience and pride are evident in graffiti left behind on some blocks. Phrases like the Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaure. These informal inscriptions show that the builders were not faceless laborers, but individuals with humor, identity, and camaraderie. They saw themselves as teams competing and contributing to a shared monumental task. By placing this world in context, we see that the pyramids were not just monuments to kings. They were the result of a dynamic society working together. Rebuilding this life in 3D brings these forgotten voices back into focus, allowing us to walk through their streets, eat their food, and witness their struggles and triumphs. Without them, the pyramids would be nothing more than an unrealized dream in the desert sands. They are the true legacy behind the stones, and through them, we understand the pyramids not only as symbols of eternity, but as monuments to human endurance, organization, and ingenuity. As the sun sets over the Giza plateau, casting long shadows across the timeless pyramids, we are reminded that these monuments are far more than ancient tombs of long dead kings. They are symbols of human ambition, creativity, and resilience, qualities that continue to inspire us in the modern world. Rebuilding the pyramids in 3D does more than provide a digital model. It allows us to reconnect with the past, to experience the grandeur and struggles of a civilization that shaped human history. But beyond their historical and archaeological importance, the pyramids carry a legacy that still resonates in culture, technology, and imagination today. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, once the tallest structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years, remains a marvel of engineering that challenges even modern minds. No steel cranes or advanced machinery were used, and yet the accuracy of its construction rivals what we can achieve with lasers and computers. Standing before the pyramid, one cannot help but wonder how such precision was possible in an age without electricity or digital tools. Through 3D reconstructions, we can simulate methods of alignment, stone, cutting, and transportation, offering possible answers to questions that have captivated scholars and dreamers for centuries. In doing so, we rediscover not just Egyptian ingenuity, but the universal human drive to solve the impossible. The pyramids also carry deep cultural meaning. They represent stability, endurance, and eternity, values that echo through human civilization. Even today, the image of the pyramid is used in architecture, corporate logos, and even on the back of the U.S. $1 bill. It is a shape that transcends time, linking us to the ancient belief in order, strength, and permanence. When Americans visit Giza, they are often struck by a sense of familiarity, as though the pyramids belong not only to Egypt, but to the shared heritage of humanity. Through 3D visualization, audiences across the world can now explore these monuments virtually, breaking barriers of distance and accessibility, making Egypt's wonders part of a global classroom. For archaeologists, the pyramids are not finished stories but living laboratories. Every year, new discoveries, hidden shafts, buried artifacts, advanced scanning result. Add layers to our understanding. Ground, penetrating radar, and 3D laser mapping have revealed anomalies inside the Great Pyramid that might represent undiscovered chambers. These findings remind us that even after 400–500 years, the pyramids still guard secrets. By using technology to reconstruct them digitally, we participate in an ongoing conversation between past and present, bridging gaps in knowledge while fueling curiosity for the future. The pyramids also challenge us to reflect on our own societies. Ancient Egyptians invested immense resources and manpower into creating monuments that would outlast generations. In our modern world, where so much is built to be temporary, the pyramids stand as a testament to building for eternity. They force us to ask, what legacies will we leave behind? Will the structures of our age endure as long as these stone giants? In this way, the pyramids are not just relics. They are mirrors, showing us the contrast between permanence and impermanence, ambition and humility, life and death. Yet, for all their grandeur, the pyramids are ultimately human achievements. They were built not only by kings but by thousands of workers, artisans, and farmers whose names history has largely forgotten. Their sweat and skill are carved into every block, and by reconstructing their world in 3D, we restore their place in the story. These were people with dreams, struggles, families, and pride, and the pyramids endure as much because of them as because of the pharaohs they honored. In remembering them, we acknowledge the shared human effort that defines civilization. Finally, the legacy of the pyramids lies in their ability to inspire wonder. Tourists who stand at their base are humbled by their scale. Children who see them in books dream of adventure, and scientists who study them are driven to push the boundaries of knowledge. With 3D reconstructions, we extend this wonder to new generations, offering them the chance to step virtually into the past, to walk among the pyramids, to hear the echoes of ancient chants, and to see the world as the Egyptians once did. This is not only a celebration of history but a bridge to the future, reminding us that curiosity and imagination are timeless human qualities. The Pyramids of Giza, rebuilt in digital form, remain more than piles of stone. They are living monuments, guardians of secrets, teachers of lessons, and symbols of what humanity can achieve when vision meets determination. As we close this journey, one truth becomes clear. The pyramids do not merely belong to Egypt, they belong to us all. They are eternal, not just because of their stones, but because they continue to shape our ideas, our questions, and our dreams. To rebuild them in 3D is to honor their past while ensuring their place in the story of the future. A story that will continue to unfold as long as the desert winds sweep across the plateau of Giza.